I wonder sometimes if we don't have this idea that somehow knowing God is kind of a magical thing. It's a magical experience, a moment of revelation, not just an epiphany, but a revelation. It's got to be something extraordinary. And it's not, because you already do know God. You already do. It's an ordinary, everyday thing. It can be extraordinary. It can be. You could see the heavens part and a dove descend and hear the voice of God saying, "Come unto me." You could, absolutely. But you also might just find God, well, in your next door neighbor, or walking in a forest, or lying in the grass, or making a snow angel these days, although snow's kind of hard at the moment. So you might want to just wonder at what's happening underneath all that, right? The hope that is in all of that grass waiting to grow in the spring, or those seeds waiting to turn into flowers for the summer. That's an experience of God. See, I truly believe we experience God most in community. I think sometimes we have a tendency to think community means just people together. But it can also mean in community with the world around you. It can mean communing with the trees. Yes, it can. It can mean taking your shoes and socks off and feeling the grass or the snow underneath your feet and realizing how connected we are to the earth. It can be looking up at the stars and wondering how amazing the universe is. It can be, if you're wondering what that snorting sound is, that's Chewy lying on the carpet over here doing what we often refer to as having the crazies, where he's just kind of like rolling around and scratching his back on the carpet, and it's having an experience of God is what he's doing right there. See, I think we want it to be something extraordinary, but it's quite the opposite. And that's actually a great and amazing thing, because it reminds us that God is in all things, including us. And it's not about wondering at God or Jesus from afar. It's about embracing them. That's the whole point of Jesus, the Word made flesh, so that we could embrace it. That's a tricky thing to talk about right now, because we're not supposed to embrace anybody. We're supposed to be actually right now keeping ourselves apart from others. We're not supposed to be hugging, wearing a mask, keeping apart. But again, maybe this is an opportunity to wonder about the other ways in which we might be connected that aren't just about those obvious ones that we love so much. That we are connected through the earth. We're connected through the air that we breathe. We're connected through the stars and the sky. We're all on the same planet. Most of the time. Aren't we? That's why I love this particular story. Man, that's just an awkward segue there. Perhaps. But that's why I love this story in John's Gospel. And I love it so much more than the old, "Hey, fishermen, come and fish with me" story. You know, the one where Jesus says, "Follow me." They drop everything, including their families, by the way, and go and follow Jesus. And we'll talk about that next week. But the great thing about this story that John tells, and he's the only one who tells it this way, is that he gives us pretty much all of the ways all of the ways in which we can be called, we can connect with God. So first of all, there's John, and he has his own disciples, right? He has his own followers. And we've just heard the story too, by the way, in the Gospel of John, of Jesus' baptism, where it certainly sounds like John doesn't recognize Jesus. He just sees him as one of the crowd that he's baptizing. But here's John suddenly realizing that Jesus is the one, and he points him out. He points him out to a couple of his own followers. And kind of like says, look, that's the guy. Go and check him out. And so they do. And they follow Jesus around. And as you can probably imagine, after a while, Jesus is wondering why a couple of guys are stalking him. And he says, what do you want? Well, we want to know what you're doing, where you're staying, what's happening here. And Jesus says, come and see. And so they do. And see, I don't think Jesus meant come and see as in just stand over there and watch from a distance. I think he meant come on in to the group, join us, and be part of this. And just try it out. You don't have to commit or anything. Just try it out for a while. And so they do. And they stay. And then they go and say, come and see to somebody else. And that somebody else goes, I obviously shouldn't snort into a microphone, but he probably snorted and said, what good could come out of Nazareth? Ha! Not the same reception, was it? Not the same. Not everyone responds the same way. Not everyone is keen to go and get involved. Sometimes you invite people and they make assumptions and make decisions based on those assumptions. Fortunately, in this story, he doesn't get to make a decision based on that assumption because he meets Jesus and they have what appears to be a wondrous exchange, but they have some sort of exchange that allows him to connect. He tried it, in other words, even though he didn't want to. And he wasn't expecting much, he tried it. And in the midst of that story is a follow me story. There's a follow me piece to the story too, just like the fishermen, right, who drop everything and go. Come and see and try it out. Just follow me. Okay. And part of that story too, come and see? Well, I don't know. Who knows? I wonder how many people heard come and see, tried it out, and kind of, yeah, this isn't for me. There were a lot. We don't hear about that until much later on. You know, the people who start to drift away from Jesus because they think he's starting to say really crazy stuff. But even from the start, I wonder how many people responded to that come and see with, yeah, no, I'm busy. Or, that guy, he's from Nazareth, you know. In all of that, that's us. That's us. Sometimes we hear somebody say, come on, just try it out. I like it. Did you know that, according to the last statistics we have for this, 88% of people go to church for the first time because a person invited them to do so? Not the pastor, or not because of advertising, or that they saw a great meme on Facebook, but because a person who goes invited them and said, I like it, you might like it, come and try it. 88%. It's worth a try. Well, it's always worth a try, isn't it? Come and see. How will you know otherwise? In fact, come and see might be a principle that we apply generally to life. How will you know otherwise? Maybe the best way isn't always to just hear somebody say, come on, and go. Maybe you want to ask a few questions. Maybe try it, you'll like it, isn't a fair assumption. It's also not a fair thing to do to respond to an invitation by making all sorts of assumptions ahead of time and then refusing, is it? This is all, where this is going, because this is where it always goes, right? In church, this always goes to, how do we get more people to come to church? That's not the point of the story, though. The point of the story isn't to get people to come to church. It's to get people to engage each other and create community. And we do that in a lot of ways, in a lot of different ways in our lives. I truly believe that one of the best ways to engage God is in community. I love the idea of church because it's about so many things and so many different ways of engaging God and doing it together. But here's the thing about John's story too, is that when they hear come and see, whether they try it right away or whether they're a little reluctant and maybe need a little bit more encouragement, or whether they need somebody like Pete who eats to encourage them to try the beets. The point is that we get people to try something new, to be part of something new. That's what happens in the story. They may or may not like it, but they tried it, and they learned something. That's such an important thing to remember right now. No, we can't gather as a community of faith in our church building together. We can't hug each other. We can't share food. We can't do all of those things we always did. All of those things that we thought were what made us community. But that isn't what makes us community. And there are other ways that we connect. There are other ways that we can share with each other. There are other ways we can find to connect with people beyond our faith community, the larger community. There are new ways. It's not enough to just wait for it to be over so that we can get back to doing what we were doing. 2 reasons for that. Number one is, how will you discover anything new if you just wait for the old to come back? And secondly, you might want to wonder whether or not the old was really doing what it needed to do. Maybe we need some new things. Maybe we need to refresh things. Maybe getting back to normal isn't a good thing. Maybe what we're looking for is something new, something fresh, something different. How are you going to find those things if you don't come and see or go and do? Maybe you have thoughts about how we can do that, and you want to invite people to come and see. Maybe you're reluctant to go and try something because it's different. But even if you don't like it, or it isn't meaningful to you, or it doesn't meet your needs, isn't it worth giving it a try? Because you don't know until you do. That's, again, why I love this story so much, is that it doesn't instantly presume you're going to like it. It doesn't instantly assume all you need to hear is a voice saying, "Come and follow me," and you'll do it. It relies on your participation. It relies on you thinking. It relies on you having questions. It relies on you wondering. so does God. So does God. How else will you come to know God in the world around you and see Jesus alive and at work in you and each of us and in the world?